The Walking Dead Dead City, Episode 6, the finale of Season 1. There's only 6 episodes. Doma Smo. This is, I say this every week, but I think it legitimately did get better every week for this. Well, not every week, but the last few weeks, at least the last 2, were a progression of this show getting a lot better. And this show is incredible. I'll get into it, but this finale was great. It was really, really great. So let's get into everything. There's quite a bit to get into, but this show is really proving to be something new, and it's like new and old at the same time, but it's very different for Walking Dead, and it's like refreshing to have something this great for the Walking Dead's brand again, and I'm just excited for it. I really am. So obviously we ended the last episode with Ginny basically getting away from Maggie in the sewers, and she lit off the flare, and that's how the episode ended. It's like now everyone knows Ginny's there. Basically what I expected to happen happened. Negan found Ginny right away with, the marshal there. He's still limping around, and essentially Negan's not happy that Ginny's on the island. He's like, why are you here? You are not supposed to be here. And then Negan basically, I don't know if he makes something up or not, but he brings up this whole thing of like, you shouldn't trust me, you shouldn't be here, and he's trying to do everything he possibly can to get her to leave with the marshal. The marshal says he'll help him, he'll get her out of the island, and he'll get her back home, basically to the new hilltop area, the bricks that they're now calling it. So the marshal's like, okay, I'll help you, I'll get her out of here, but she doesn't want to leave. She wants to stay with Negan. That's the whole thing with her. So she finally tries to speak to Negan, so we hear her speak for the first time, because she really, really wants to, let him know that, I want to be here, I want to, reunite with you, I want to be with Negan again. And Negan really needs her to leave. He really needs her to leave. She's not safe here on this island. And he basically, I don't know if he makes it up, but he does tell her that of the 5 men or the 5 people that he killed from New Babylon, her father was one of them. And then he went to find her and basically travel with her, or just because she had no one now, because he killed her father. And you can see here in this frame that she is incredibly broken from that point on. It was able to get her to leave, so she left with the marshal, and Negan basically betrayed her. He basically sent out a major betrayal towards Ginny, and now that relationship is rocky again, because now if it was a lie, either way, Negan told her that he killed her father. So now, either way, there's an issue there. There is a conflict to resolve between Negan and Ginny. Who knows if he actually did it or not? I don't really know, honestly. He could have, and he could have not. I know he really wants to protect her, so I think he could have just been saying that to get her to leave. But I also can really see it being a thing where, he killed her father, and then he ended up later finding her and forming a bond with her. And then obviously feeling guilty about it later. I don't know. I do think, personally, I think he's lying about it, and I think he just really wanted her to leave. But we'll see. We'll see where that goes. So Maggie and Negan. It's literally just back to them. Everyone else is dead. The other group is completely gone. And I think that was for the best. I know I made my complaints last week where they killed literally everyone from that new group they met, and I still think they could have kept them around. But for the story that they were trying to get here in this finale, and there's still some new characters in this show that are seemingly going to be quite significant, so I think it overall will play better. But it was kind of interesting that they just killed that whole new group so quickly. But I guess it just is what it is. But Negan and Maggie, that's it. That's all we got left. And they see that the Croat or somebody is heading back towards, where they're trying to get to with the burning smoke. They're still trying to get to that location, so they make it there. And Negan has been watching Maggie quite closely now for, walking through the city. He's trying to figure things out, what's exactly going on. It's kind of strange. Things are not really panning out necessarily as he, I guess, would have suspected. He's kind of realizing something's a little up. They enter the building here with, Maggie and Negan, and he's looking at her in a certain way. It's like, what's exactly going on here? You can see it on his face here. What's going on? He's not a dumb man. Negan is a very smart man. He's always a very conflicted man too. He's not dumb though. You could tell something's wrong, and immediately Maggie and Negan fight. So they kind of tussle, they run away, they run up onto these bars under the bridge or bridge area or something like that in the city, and obviously you're gonna have a bunch of walkers below just to kind of build tension, and you got a fight between Negan and Maggie. And this is something we if you actually looked into the Dead City stuff, and you looked up behind the scenes stuff well before the show even started, this is a fight that was actually caught by someone that was like some bystanders. They leaked it. It was like a leaked fight between Negan and Maggie. There was no context behind it. We had no idea exactly why they were fighting in the moment, but this is now that exact scene that they were filming. And Negan and Maggie, they're fighting. She stabs Negan in the shoulder. It always amazes me in these shows how they can just get stabbed in certain areas and they're fine completely. He literally gets stabbed in the shoulder and then he just pulls it out and he's fine the rest of the episode. It's kind of strange, but they fight a little bit. Negan basically wins the fight and they have a little conversation after that. He's like, I know you are never going to get over what I did to you. He's been trying, and he can tell that Maggie is just literally never going to get over it, and he's just straight up telling her, I get it in a way. I almost get it. You're just never going to get over it. And he can now see the whole picture. The Croat shows up, and she is there to bring him in. It was never about, how having Negan convince the Croat to give her son back. No, he now realizes the whole he realizes the whole thing, and he now just he can't trust Maggie anymore. He just realizes that she's never going to get over what I did to her, and he now knows this is my situation. So he won the fight, but he just kind of threw the weapons down, and she ended up picking them back up and basically putting it to his throat. And now Maggie is bringing Negan with the Croat. We jump back to the Marshal, and we get a little bit of a story here with the Marshal that really sets up something for ongoing into season 2 for this show. So he brings Ginny back to the bricks or the new hilltop, and then he heads off to New Babylon, where he was always probably going to go. We got the Croat here and his people, and you got Negan and Maggie. Maggie is holding the knife to Negan, and the Croat's going over, and he does mention in the conversation, and Maggie notices that oh, for a second, when I saw you last, it was last episode or a few episodes ago when they interacted, it's okay, I can have Negan and I can have the kid. He's kind of bragging oh, for a moment I almost thought I could have kept the kid and didn't have to, trade the kid for Negan. And Maggie noticed that. She noticed that he said that. It's really? It's just a little thing that she noticed, but it's something the Croat said is kind of interesting. It's he almost would have just kept Herschel, I believe, and then just took in Negan as well and betrayed Maggie. So that's this little something I picked up there that they had him say when they were heading to this new villain that they introduced last episode. So basically the whole thing is Maggie, it goes pretty smoothly too. Actually, I'm surprised because this group is not necessarily that friendly. She's there to turn Negan over for Herschel, and they bring Herschel out. There he is, and they make an exchange, Negan for Herschel, and Maggie gets Herschel back, and everything's well. But you can tell the tension there, and again, Negan is accepting, I almost get it. You're exchanging me for your son. You get your son back, and he tells Maggie just to, protect Ginny for me, because obviously Negan has no idea what he's about to go and deal and face with. So Maggie has her son back, and that conflict is resolved for now, at least, but they kind of leave us with a cliffhanger at the end. But that conflict for now is resolved, and it basically more leads to what is going on with Negan now. So we do jump back to the Marshal, and he's back in New Babylon, and New Babylon, we're not done with them yet. We're not done with New Babylon and the Marshals there. They're not the greatest of people. Okay, we know we have our villains on the island itself, but we have this side conflict that is kind of propelling the conflict with Negan in a way. It all links together, and it's really, really well done, I think. So the Marshal, he comes back, he says, all right, I had Negan, I had him cornered, and I killed him. He tells the Marshals that he killed Negan because he never came back with him, so he's lying to them. So I would assume now I've been saying through this show that Marshall's not that good of a guy. He killed the one guy at the beginning. His officer with him. But I don't really know what to make of the Marshal just yet. I think he is a good a good guy generally in this show. I think he will be like a hero in this show. The Walking Dead's really interesting because you never really have a hero and a villain in a way. You do have a clear villain at some points, but you never really have a true hero. Your hero is always done bad things, like Rick. Rick has done a lot of bad things, but he's always, we see him as our hero in The Walking Dead. That's just kind of always how it is. And I think the Marshal is just going to be another one of those characters that I think generally he's going to be a hero in the show, but he's a conflicted guy as well. But right now he's lying to protect Negan because, they kind of bonded last episode in the city. And now he's lying to his New Babylon marshals here that, like, oh, I killed him. You don't have to go back for him. And I would assume this lady is in charge. She is like the chief or something. I don't know. I don't know if she realizes that he's lying or not, but she does mention the methane in the city. And it brings together the whole thing of what New Babylon wants and these new marshals want. Their true intentions are that they really want the methane and the power that the methane in the city can provide them for their new town or whatever. So that is kind of their conflict that they're bringing towards the whole story with, what's going on in the island and Negan and that whole group. It's like there's almost like a conflict brewing between them. Is this New Babylon area, they want the methane, they want the power, they want the energy from the city. And it kind of framed itself as they are kind of like a villain as well in a way. So I don't really see them as the greatest of people either, but we all do have our main villain still on the island. So it's like a side conflict here, and I think it's interesting actually. We'll pick back up with it next season, I would assume. But for now, that's where it's left off. He's back in New Babylon, and we'll see where it goes. But it definitely did build up an interesting thing there with the methane that we had dealt with last episode with Negan and Maggie, or just Maggie in the sewers there. So Maggie is back with Herschel, and we get some conversations with Herschel and Maggie. This was the big one in this episode. So basically, Maggie's like all happy, I got my son back, and I'm glad I have you back. And Herschel, initially, you look at Herschel, and he's really combative towards his mother. And initially, I'm like, okay, this kid's really annoying. But then he makes some really good points. He makes some really good points about Negan, and in The Walking Dead, season 11, I think in particular, he was really mad at Negan, because he killed his father. And you could tell that Herschel is not fond of Negan, and he almost wants to hurt Negan. But in this show, he's almost gotten past that now. He's just kind of, he has no really hard feelings. He doesn't care about Negan. He just doesn't care about Negan as Maggie does, and he brings that up. He mentions to his mother, I feel like you have always concerned yourself with Negan and your conflict with Negan over me, your own son. And that is kind of maybe why he's combative towards his mother and why he's so angry all the time, because in this show he is incredibly pissed off. This kid is not happy. We've never really seen him in this show happy yet. He's always pissed off at someone or something. And that's kind of what he mentioned. So he does make a good point. She's always obsessed with this conflict with Negan, and he can also see it. I'm like, yeah, thank you for bringing it up, because this whole conflict with Negan and Maggie is constantly losing her mind over it. It does get tiring, and I'm glad someone in the show is finally on my side with that. I'll just say that much. So we get a really interesting story with the Croat again. It's another flashback story with him and Negan, and he's traveling to meet up with his new lady villain friend that we met last episode. So he's bringing up the story with Negan, how he mentioned the river people. And I'm thinking this might be Oceanside. I could be wrong though, but he did mention the ocean people. There's a group of people that he and Negan confronted as they were with the Saviors, and when they were going around commanding control with Lucille and everything, as Negan put on his shows. And he mentions that Negan let the Croat hold Lucille once and use Lucille to kill the leader of this group or someone in this group. And he was talking about how, I saw with you, Negan, the power that we commanded with Lucille and what we did, and this brutality that we commanded towards these different groups. And you could see the power that we commanded and we brought, with the saviors, and how incredible it was and how beautiful it was. And he's trying to reawaken this monster in Negan that we can't really tell if Negan is still that man or not. At the end of Walking Dead's main show, you could almost think, okay, he's redeemed now, right? And I think Negan, for the most part, is not the same man at all of what he was, but there is still this side to him that can be awakened, that he doesn't want to reawaken. And that is kind of the whole point of this last episode here, is there are these people in his past that are coming back to reawaken this version of Negan he does not want to reawaken. They're trying to reawaken a beast that he does not want to bring back. And they're trying to get closer and closer to that. So we'll see what happens, mostly next season. But Negan is having a very hard time hearing this past stuff that he used to do. So we cut back to Maggie in the hilltop. She does bring back the stuffed dinosaur for Ginny while she's sleeping. She does set it back next to Ginny. I don't know how that relationship with Ginny and Negan is going to go going forwards. It will be interesting. I was almost telling myself, like, maybe she doesn't even want to see the dinosaur now because of what Negan told her. That's where we'll leave off with Ginny, though. We don't see her again, and I'm sure that, again, that relationship between even Maggie, Ginny, Negan, all that stuff will be brought back up next season. But it did leave an interesting note there. And then she goes and talks to Herschel, and she does mention, like, yeah, I have had this conflict with Negan, and it's almost like a promise almost to Herschel, because she realized that he's almost not wrong, and this conflict with Negan has always been there and bothering her, and she's like, I am going to resolve this. She tells him, I am going to solve this. I'm going to resolve this thing with Negan. And it's almost left like we don't really know what she means by that. Like, maybe she wants to go and end him once and for all, or maybe she wants to just finally end the conflict, and she wants to make peace with the whole the whole thing. And again, she almost did that in the end of The Walking Dead season 11, but of course with this show, we brought the whole thing back up. So now in this show, maybe it can be resolved again, even more concrete than it was. It wasn't totally concrete at the end of season 11 of Walking Dead, but maybe in this show, near the end of this show, we can reach a concrete solution between this conflict between these two characters, because these two characters have always been at odds, and now it's interfering with her relationship with her son. So if that's the case, maybe this will be a reason to finally just put an end to her worrying so much about Negan. So we're back to the theater that we saw last episode, where the Croat met with this new lady, and I don't remember her name yet, but she's like basically the new villain leader in this show. So they go to meet with her, and this was basically the whole plan we kind of figured out at the end of the last episode, is like these two are working together to get Negan. They want Negan to be their savior, I suppose. So she's really cold to the Croat. You can notice right away that, like, she has no care for the Croat. The Croat is like super ecstatic. It's super excited for them to meet. And you can tell he's just like all giddy about it. And then she basically just sends him away. He's like, she wants to talk to Negan alone. And you can tell that he's like, oh, all right. And he just leaves. He's not really super happy about that. I could play into the next season with, the relationship. I don't really understand the relationship between those two yet. It's like he just wanted to serve someone again, and he's been serving this lady, and she doesn't really care about him as, he maybe seems to care. We'll see where that goes. But he leaves the room, and then there's this conversation between this new lady and Negan. And she mentions that there are forces out there. She mentions there are forces out there that we need to fight against. And I'm assuming this is the conflict between, New Babylon and the Marshals. And she does hold up like a Marshal's badge. So, there's a conflict here between them and the Marshals of New Babylon. And she wants Negan there to help them out to fight these people. And she basically wants to reignite the old Negan to basically be their leader and, help them win against the Marshals. That's kind of what I'm assuming. And initially Negan's like, yeah, nah, I'm not doing this. This is not what I'm doing. This is not the man I am anymore anyways. And she kind of almost suspected that, and this kind of tells me that like she wants Negan to be in charge, but really he's not gonna be in charge. I'm the one holding all the cards here. And she pulls out something really gross. She hands him some keys, and she hands him a little box, and he opens the box, and I couldn't even tell what it was until it was kind of explained a moment later. He opens the box, and there's a toe. There's a cut off, severed toe in the box. I'm like, what the hell is this? This is apparently Herschel's toe. So the Croat and this lady, they took something from Herschel. They pulled off his toe. They cut off his toe and kept it. So it's a little weird. But she basically mentions, I see now that you care to protect this child. And you feel very, very bad about what you did to Herschel and his father, and what you did to Maggie and this whole family, and you feel regret over that. And she basically threatens that, like, to Negan, like, if you don't help us, if you don't become this monster again that we want you to become, we can still hurt this kid. We can still hurt Herschel, and we can still go find him and hurt him again. And basically Negan is at this point now where he wants to, protect Herschel. He wants to protect Ginny, and he doesn't really want to keep this conflict with Maggie going anymore. He doesn't really, he wants it to stop. So she's basically bargaining like, if you don't help us, we will hurt Herschel. We will go back and hurt this kid again. And Maggie, we cut back to Maggie during this conversation, and she's going through some like drawings from Herschel, and she notices a drawing of this lady at the end. And it's basically setting up, like, I guess this whole thing of, like, this is our new threat. This lady right here, she's trying to reawaken the old Negan, and she has a handle on, like, I can still hurt this kid. I can still hurt Herschel if you don't help me. So we got this face of Negan at the end. It's like almost this darkness in Negan again. It's like he doesn't want to do it, but now it's like he's being convinced to awaken something in him. I don't think it's totally, this is like against his will almost, but they want him to become Savior Negan once again, and you can see in his face, it's like, God damn it. God damn it. And then we cut to the end of the episode, and this final shot of the season is of Negan and Maggie, where they're both looking up, and these two characters once again are in some way most likely going to come into conflict again, and this is a major story again. It just shows us this story between them is still so intertwined, and that's where we leave it. Negan is got this really dark look on him, and Maggie is, looking at this picture, this drawing that her son drew of this lady that she just doesn't know. So that's where the conflict will go next season. They're still trying to reawaken an old Negan, and Maggie is going to probably go back to the city, I would assume. But that's it. That's where the episode ends. And man, I gotta say, this show is great. Okay? And on my channel, I've mentioned many times, there's so many shows like Star Wars, and there's Marvel stuff going on too, where it's just like they're losing touch on what they want to do in their stuff. The Walking Dead has not had a good track record with their spin-offs either. This show is great. It is a step in the right direction for The Walking Dead's brand. And genuinely, if you are, coming off The Walking Dead and you haven't watched any of the other spin-offs just yet, don't watch them. Please do not watch any of the other Walking Dead spin-offs. Just watch this, and you will feel a lot better about the brand overall of The Walking Dead. This show is great. It's really, really great. There's no identity politics. There's no like controversial topics thrown into the show in any way. The Walking Dead has kind of strayed away from that generally, and it's doing a great job so far of that. It's just trying to tell a story that was kind of developed in the main show that is quite fascinating. And it's doing a great job in this show as well. And it's just telling a story in the apocalypse of these two characters who have had such differences and conflicting issues between them. And I'm just I'm really loving what they're doing in this show. I think it's great. I really, really think it's great. Now, I mean, I'm not super happy. I wasn't originally happy that they're, reigniting this conflict between them because it was kind of resolved again. They kind of ended on like neutral ground in the end of Walking Dead. But, I think it can really lead to something very fascinating. Going into how many other seasons they do in this show now, maybe even one, I don't know. I think it can lead to an incredibly fascinating story, a really good story. And it can actually end with an actual ending, maybe with these two characters. In like maybe the universe overall, maybe we'll just come to an ending with these characters once and for all. Because I feel like all these spin-offs of The Walking Dead are all leading to we're gonna finally wrap up our stories with these characters. Like with Daryl coming up in September now. Like, I think eventually that shows is going to lead to we're done with this character at some point, and we're going to finally wrap up our story with him. With Rick and Michonne, we're going to wrap up their story with them, and I think that's kind of what these shows are almost going to do. And I think with this show and just seeing how well done these 6 episodes were done, I'm looking forward to seeing what the other ones will do as well. But The Walking Dead Dead City, guys, it is fantastic. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a lot better than Walking Dead Season 11. And I gotta say, Walking Dead Season 11 has some really good stuff in it. Again, with those it was like 16 final, it was like 24 episodes in general in that final season. Way too many episodes, I would say. I think the shortened seasons are going to do better for The Walking Dead. The 6 episodes, I think they could have done even a little more, maybe like 8. But you don't need the 16 that The Walking Dead would always do. You don't need it. I think you can tell a very good story in a much smaller amount of episodes, and I think that will be good for The Walking Dead's brand because it's always had a lot of filler type stuff, running around in the woods, and I think we can kind of get away from that and tell some really interesting, dynamic, and just well done stories. And I'm glad that this show is good. I really am. So, Walking Dead Dead City, Season 1, it was great. And I'm looking forward to Season 2. They built up a real good cliffhanger. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what they do in Season 2 now. I really want to get to Season 2. And that's exactly where you want to leave off. At the end of your season instead of like, oh, okay. But no, I really want to see what's next. We're reigniting an old Negan and something interesting could really happen there. So, great episode. Probably the best episode of the season. And yeah, on to Daryl Dixon. Daryl Dixon's the next show, and I hope it's just as good as this. Because this is the first really promising Walking Dead spinoff. It's good stuff.